Hello and welcome to another episode of Corgi Town USA. I am Candy. In my lap is Chuckles, our spokescorg.
Hi, I'm Catherine, and next to me is Digby, my son, sitting home, resting and relaxing, is honorary corgi Indy, and we'll talk about it later. I have
Your fosters.
my fosters. I have a mama and 6 puppies.
Holy moly.
Yep,
Cat's a masochist.
she
Welcome
is.
to the show. We also have in studio the entire Corgi committee. That is, of course, Chuckles and Tito Bandito, the newest member. We have Booger, and we also have Mortimer Barnabas. So if you have cacophony of borks, welcome to Corgi Town USA.
Where
And
the corgis run the town.
yes, if you're new here, hi.
Hi.
Every week we have new episodes, all things corgi and pet parent lifestyle. So we are here to support you and help guide you through all the nuances of parenting, corgi specific, but we're here to support, pet parentdom, right?
Yeah, pet parentum.
Yeah.
And we haven't said it in a while, but please hit that like button and subscribe so that you know when we come out with a new episode. It definitely helps us, and it helps us get that message out.
So we can keep going.
So we can keep going, get that message out, and help pet parents all over, not just corgis, corgi-centric, but not just corgis, just to be better pet parents.
Help us help you. Yes,
Exactly.
We want to try to start emptying out our shelters and rescue groups because everybody is bursting at the seams.
Yes.
And part of this is the off the rails breeding. And then probably irresponsible not spaying and neutering. There's just a lot of layers to this problem. So we've addressed a lot of that. And we're going to talk about it a little bit more in this episode as well. Hopefully, we can help educate and get the word out. But if you are part of the Corgi enthusiast community, you probably know about the Stumpy Brigade.
Yay, Stumpy Brigade.
So we brought them on the show. They were kind enough to give us their time today. Should we bring them on?
We should.
Everyone, please welcome Gary and Sang from the Stumpy Brigade. Welcome.
Hello. Thanks for having us.
Hi.
Hi. Yeah, thank you for taking time to do the show. I know that you guys have a really full boat with everything you're going on. So everything you got going on, hopefully I can talk today.
Yeah.
I'm a podcast host who's not good with the words. I don't have them.
What are we?
So it's going to be one of those days.
Yep.
You even saw me drink coffee.
I did.
I have no
did.
excuse.
You have no excuse.
So let's get started. Stumpy Brigade. We've been followers of you for a while, so we love your content on Instagram and just keeping up with what you're doing, and feel quite passionate to help. Love how much you guys care and everything you do. So can you tell us, maybe starting out, how you got started with corgis?
So we got started with corgis, more specifically, in 2016.
Yeah.
When we got connected with a rescue transport group. So it was
Corgi Coalition.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if you're listening or viewing and you don't know what a transport group is, this is a network of people who help transport available rescues and to their destination. So if someone in a region wants to rescue and they're in New York, but the corgi's in California, or the dog is in Tennessee, then we connect a chain of people who are willing to take that leg of transport.
Yeah. I think the group has now retired due to COVID, but
I haven't seen anything in a while.
Yeah, I think the group is archived. But we were part of the group initially in 2015 when we adopted our husky corgi mix, Pepper. She came from Oklahoma, and we found out about the group because, like you said, we were trying to adopt her, but we're in Jersey, and she was down in Oklahoma. So the group helped us transport her to us. And I think we did our first transport with them January of 2016.
Amazing.
Aww.
And how many legs of transport? How many people had to be involved in that to get her to you?
For Pepper,
so
yeah.
Pepper, I think it was probably around
It was
10,
2 days. Yeah,
10
it was 2 days.
legs.
Quite a few handoffs. Yeah.
Yeah.
2 days worth of driving.
Yeah. She had an overnight somewhere. Yeah.
Aw.
My leg, so I am unofficially part of an online transport group, and my leg is Southern California to Arizona because we go back and forth through there, and sometimes we have rescues back and forth. That's pretty amazing.
Yes.
And technically you're not a rescue. So can you tell me sort of how you arrived here? And take your time. I'm sure it's not an A to B.
Yeah, so I mean, we have 10 rescue animals, 6 rescue dogs, and 4 rescue cats. One of them is
Aw.
based currently, right here. So we've been in the rescue community for a while, before we got specifically more involved with corgis. Through the transport group, we connected up with a local rescue, and we've been helping with their rescues and their transportation needs since 2016 when we first got involved.
Yeah. We kind of honestly fell into it, I think.
That's how it happens.
Yeah, because I came from a family where we thought like to get a pet, you just go to the store or you go to a farm.
Right.
And when I met Gary, he was like, hey, there's actually rescue animals that are available. And then I kind of tumbled into that. Like he said, we ended up, I think I would say overcompensating, because I didn't grow up with animals, but now we have 6 dogs, 4 cats, and we foster and we transport. And honestly, we love it. But
Yeah.
the transport portion, we definitely fell into it because it was such a different way of volunteering your time. Because I think a lot of what we hear is, okay, you want to foster or you want to volunteer at a local shelter, and that's pretty common.
Right.
But what people don't really talk about is like how these animals get to the rescues or get to the shelters. So that's kind of where we come in. And when we fell into it, like we loved it. I don't personally drive. So Gary does the driving and I'm out there playing with the dogs. So I have the fun job.
You're the management, right?
Yeah.
Management, that's right.
Yeah.
management team coordinator. That's very true. I am doing my first fostering ever, a mama and her babies, and of course they send you home with a file that they took that day, and the babies were 2 days old when they came in.
And explain you're working with a rescue group,
I'm working
right?
with a rescue group.
Mhm.
So Maricopa County Animal Control.
That's
So
our local. Mhm.
Maricopa County is where we
Local to
live here in
us.
Phoenix, Arizona, local to us, and it is the county-run, state-run facility. And of course, like all of our shelters and everything, overflowing. And a friend of mine reached out and had asked for people to help rescue, and I thought I could do this, and I am.
Mhm.
Uh,
So they
the
give you
pictures-
the county gave you a file.
the county gave me a file, and the file has a picture of the mama, and the mama is on a porch, like really pretty, like a porch with a house. And you wonder, because you don't get a lot of backstory, and you wonder, like, how did they get from point A to? But did mama come onto their porch to have the babies? Did somebody not able to take care of them? And so you're absolutely right. That middle part, how did they get from the porch to the animal control center? That's where you guys
You
come
had
in.
a Stumpy, somebody like a TheStumpyBrigade working behind the scenes.
Exactly. And that's what we don't like. I didn't know that. And here I am doing the podcast for 4 years.
Mhm.
It's a part of the puzzle that we don't all think about or realize.
And this is the educational part. But what
Yes.
if this work that you guys do, and thank you for doing it. We love that you're doing
Absolutely.
it.
Oh, we
That's
all love doing it.
yeah. I mean, it's incredibly fulfilling. There's
Mhm.
it's a mixed, I would say, feelings, right? Because there's also a lot of heartbreak involved. That's how you got here, right?
Yeah, it's some transports are definitely rougher than others.
Sure. And that's Kat, you're talking about backstory. Sometimes we don't have it.
Right.
Sometimes the rescue doesn't have it. And of course, there's the Korean meat trade, and there are different groups that work on getting those animals to the States when they're available rescues. There's a lot of money involved in that because we have to cross some ponds there to
Yep.
get them. But this all starts because of the need. You have an animal in need, and there have been some wonderful volunteers that have seen this need and have stepped in to help. And that's how we get here. And I love saying that you mentioned that that you didn't grow up with animals and you thought, oh, how much is that doggy in the window, right? We think that's kind of old conventional wisdom that,
Yeah.
oh, you go to the pet store and you buy a puppy. And that's part of this evolution in culture that we're experiencing, specifically here in the States, about how we're more aware of the need for rescue and how not every animal is bred under mindful circumstances. Too many are not. And that's why we wind up with sick animals and animals that do need transported from point A to point B to get help, because the help is not concentrated in a region. So I'm glad that you brought that up. I think the this conventional wisdom of, oh, you find a breeder, you find a pet store
in the mall.
Right. And that's I think as a society, we've gotten away from that, because as I go and we talk to more people, we hear more about, oh, pet stores don't buy from pet stores. Not everybody knows, but there's been a collective shift that even some of your chain pet stores have gone to rescues.
Yes.
And charging for rescues as opposed to buying from puppy mills and backyard breeders. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. But I think it's a good educational piece. I feel like most of our audience, our listener viewers, very aware, and most of you out there listening have rescues. And as you know, I've had several. Most of mine have been rescues until recently, because of some things that happened. But it's definitely a process. I have Booger, who is, we think she's 13 or 14 now.
Yeah.
Her health is starting to degrade. It's never been great. She was, I don't think ever had been outside. She was supposed to be 2 when I got her. We think she was more like 4. Her teeth were black. I don't know what they were feeding her, but she obviously wasn't getting proper nutrition. She's only 16 pounds as a fully grown adult Corgi. They say, oh, she's the runt. I think she was probably poorly cared for, but this is an anecdote, right?
Right.
And then I had Hammer, who had DM, which he developed it later in life. He was also a rescue. There's so many layers to this. But let's talk about, because of what you do, the importance of, now that I've gone on my diatribe, the importance of fostering and transport in your words for what you do.
So fostering is, I think, the more common thing that most people are already aware of, or there's growing awareness that that's a really important piece of the rescue community. But what people, I think, don't fully realize yet is that fostering takes a lot of forms. So it's not necessarily the big, long, extended need for you to take an animal for months and months and months until they find a home for them. You can kind of look at transporting as a temporary, like a very short-term foster.
Yeah.
In terms of making sure the dog gets from point A to point B, and you're only responsible for fostering them for a few hours. And once you hand them off to the next foster, which is essentially what the next transport person is, it's their responsibility to continue the journey, or if, for our case, a lot of times we're the final stop. So we pick up the dog from another volunteer and bring them to their final foster location.
Oh,
they will stay until they're adopted.
So I think that's great for, we all do what we can with what we got. We all do what we can with what we know. And I think this is an amazing option that, like I said, I didn't even know about. I didn't even know that you were part of I didn't even know she's part of a transport, and she's going to be my maid of honor in a few months. So there you go. But I think this is an amazing, amazing option for someone who says, I want to, I'm afraid. So for me, for fostering, I'm afraid of the cats. What is Digby going to do? Because he's a little rambunctious. What are the puppies going to do?
That's what she means by she's afraid of the cats. Not that she's afraid they're going to hurt her in her sleep. It's just that she's afraid of how the cats.
I'm sorry. They do hurt me in my sleep. Naboo peed on the bed for 2 days,
sharpening the claws.
They do. Naboo did pee. She did, and this is something about my cat Naboo. If she doesn't like something, she will pee in the bed.
She has opinions.
She has opinions, and she lets them be well known. And now she's like looking at the puppies and everything. The bottom line is that it's an option, and I love this option. I want to do something. I really do. I don't want to bring, another dog in. I have dogs. I have cats. I'm not sure how they'll get along. This is an amazing option. So tell us more.
Yeah, I'm going to go off the cuff a little bit, and I want to ask about, one, is there a vetting process for your transports, and how how do individuals get involved? Do they follow you and simply answer the call to action?
So now that the I guess like the Facebook group of the Transport Coalition is archived, there are still people behind the scenes that are coordinating these transports. So for us, we got lucky where we are kind of in a location between Lancaster, where a lot of the puppy mills are,
Yeah.
and our the rescue partner that we work with out in Freeport, Long Island.
Okay.
So we're kind of in the like ideal spot where we can help. And I think we when that transport group fell apart, they kept our information. So they continued to kind of reach out to us. I know that for local regional groups, there are also transport groups. So there's a like a transport group for New Jersey. There's a transport group for New York, where you can sign up on Facebook. They basically go through like basic vetting to make sure that you are who you say you are.
And that you're going to show up where you say you're going to show up.
Yeah, that's huge.
Exactly.
Committal.
Yeah. Because if you think about it, because these transports rely on like a myriad of volunteers, they give you the time and you have to be there. If you're not there, then the transport kind of falls apart, right? So we've had transports where I think a person maybe had an emergency and couldn't do the one part of their thing. So then I guess like the people before and after kind of drive a little bit further and just meet in the middle so that they can continue the transport.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, bridge the leg.
Bridge the leg.
Bridge the broken leg.
Yeah.
And I'm from that area. I'm actually from Queens. So
Ew!
yeah. Yeah.
I'm
Do we want to say where, like 104th Street, Jamaica Avenue in Queens? You used to hang out on Queens Boulevard. Okay.
Cat from the street.
Elmhurst, so.
Oh, you're from Elmhurst. Okay. So Elmhurst is where my high school was.
Hey, what's your high school?
Actually, no, it's Middle Village. So Elmhurst. I went to Christ the King.
Oh, nice. I went to Newtown, but I went to
Okay.
So it's not a great high school now, but that's besides the point.
Ooh.
Yeah. No. Anyway.
Yeah.
But so it's not. For our listeners in that area, and you already know because you're in that area. It's not a huge drive. It's an expensive drive because of how much they charge for the bridges and tolls and tunnels.
Yeah.
However, it's something that's doable. So please reach out and do this. And we've, without pointing fingers, because I'm not allowed to, according to Candy, but without pointing fingers, there's a problem in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, we know the Northeast is a hotbed for puppy mills and Amish puppy mills.
Okay, you can say it.
Well, we're not shaming the Amish. It is a mindset that they've been brought up through generations and generations.
It's a cultural thing.
That animals are commodities. They're not living, breathing, sentient beings with feelings.
Yep.
It's very unfortunate. It's very heartbreaking, but that's part of this problem.
Yeah.
As you're well aware.
Yeah, and there's pockets of that all over in different parts of the country. So it's not just this area.
Sure.
Oh, yeah.
There's some in Ohio. There's some down south, in the Georgia area.
Mm-hmm.
There's some out west.
I think they're all over.
So
they are all over. It's we know about the Northeast because Melissa from East Coast Corgi Rescue has joined us a few times, and we've kind of talked about some of the problems they have there. And then we had Emily from Adopt a Corgi, the Facebook page Adopt a Corgi, and she's near Ohio, I think, or Indiana. Yep. But we've learned about where some of the hotbeds are because you volunteers that are so wonderful for doing this, you see it firsthand.
Yeah.
You see the heartbreak. And so we'll get into that. Are there a couple of memorable cases that you would like to share to help everyone understand that might not know the brevity?
So I think we are fortunate and unfortunate enough where we are far enough away from the area where the rescue partner that we work with pull from. So we are far enough where we don't typically go see these millers ourselves up until this year. So we did see some pretty terrible things leading up to it. And then we did our first transport in Lancaster with us picking up directly this year. And I think it was hard. It was really, really hard seeing how I'm going to tear up.
Yeah.
It was really hard seeing how the animals were treated. I think leading up to this, and then I'll stop and you can say this, but leading up to us seeing the puppies at these Lancaster mills, I think the one memorable one was a couple years ago in the Northeast. We had like a polar vortex during winter where it was extremely, extremely cold outside. And we did a transport. We weren't there personally, but we did see pictures through the transport chat where these dogs were stacked outside in like 4x4 crates. And so in the middle of the winter in this polar vortex, and their water bowls were frozen. And that was really memorable for me. I think it like broke me down for a while.
Yeah.
And then obviously when we visited this mill earlier this year, oh man. You can take over.
Without going into too much graphic detail,
Sure.
It is upsetting.
Sure.
Basically, you get there, they won't let you go in to see where the animals are, and they come out. It's a very, very rural farm, which is fine. But
when you say they, are you talking about the mill itself?
Mill itself, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So, the major red flag is that they don't show you where any of these animals are being held. It's just a barn, and you can't don't go inside. It's just shut off. He gave us 2 corgis at that point. They couldn't find their medical records to give us. Very often the ones they give us are not accurate anyway, so it almost doesn't matter.
Sure.
And these 2 dogs were covered in their own
fluids,
and everything like that.
Yeah.
They smelled so bad that we had to drive the whole trip from Lancaster back into New York City.
I think it was like 5 hours with the windows down.
Because
they
had never been washed. They had never been on leash before.
Their nails were curling up so badly.
Curled over.
It was really hard to watch, and they were so scared. So I think probably gave them more room than they're used to. So we opened up our because we have an SUV, so we opened up the back end, and we did not put up crates. Normally we'll put up crates so that they feel a little bit more secure. So we had the crates stacked up in the back so that they can have more room to roam. And these 2 cuddled on top of the crates.
Aww.
Scared. And I think we stopped and we had some tater tots from fast food restaurants. And I was trying to just give them something so that they feel more comfortable.
Right.
And they were so scared. And this is how we know dogs are truly scared, when they do not take food from you.
Right.
They are terrified. And that was really, really heartbreaking.
Well, I'm glad that you got them. Thank you for doing this. And I think it's important to talk about that. We tackle some subjects here that are really hard. We've talked a lot about grieving and then losing our beloveds and some of these. But in rescue, I think it's important to tell these stories, because if we shut the door on what actually happens, it's easier to ignore.
Yeah.
When we see the ugly, I think it helps us. That's a why. This is my why.
Yeah.
Is talking to people like you that do this and getting the information out there so that we can collectively get more help and try to prevent this from happening as much as we can. Are we ever going to stop it? Probably not. But all we can do is move forward in the hopes that we can.
Yeah. And honestly, for every transport that we do make a small difference, right?
Sure. 100%.
The lives of the animals that we're able to pull. So, and that's part of the reason why we keep doing this, and we've been doing it for almost 10 years now. It needs to be done, right? Like someone has to be there to help these animals, and if not us, then who?
Right.
100%.
Why would this breeder, who is only concerned with money, who's only concerned with how many puppies can this mama produce and how often, why would they give you those two corgis?
So in that case, and this year, it seems it's gotten a little bit worse than previous years. I can make some guesses as to why that's happening, but usually it's because they don't sell them fast enough, and they get too old, and at that point, after a few months old, usually they can't sell them anymore.
Right.
So, because people are looking for puppies.
Right.
So they are more willing to give them up to get rid of them, so they don't have to keep feeding them and providing what little vet care they do give them, basically costing money. So that's usually why.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if everyone out there is listening, and again, we've said it a million times, we'll say it again. Vet the people that you're getting
Your puppy
the puppy from.
Yeah. Please reach out to us. We will never be incentivized by any breeding program.
Nope.
Very careful with recommending individuals. I will, if you're like, I really just give me a name, but we try to stay away from that. We want to give you the information so you can make that decision yourself and give you that. So as we're bringing this up, can you tell us in your observation and experience what a puppy mill looks like? Because sometimes it's not obvious. And I will kind of preface this conversation with, there are some breeders out there that are quote unquote reputable, that have a reputation that this is a reputable breeder because they've been able to hide some things that they're doing. And I unfortunately know more of these than I would care to admit. So if someone asks me about a specific kennel, I will say, no, and I'll tell you why. But this is privately because I'm not here to publicly lambaste or shame anyone. This is because I want us purchasing puppies from the right places.
Yes.
So can you tell our dear listener, dear viewer, what a puppy mill may look like without being blatantly obvious? I think we all know if we walk into a barn with puppies covered in poo, that those aren't not a good place to get your puppy from. But there are probably some nuanced things to look out for in your words.
I think one thing is diligence. Do your due diligence, because I think what Gary and I have realized over the years that we're transporting is that these puppies, you don't get to walk into a barn and see these puppies and the parent, like mom and dad covered in poop. Sometimes they will set up a meet and greet somewhere else. Yes, you will meet a pair of dogs that maybe the mom or the dad, but it's more likely that these are just for show. And then the mom is actually still in the barn breeding.
Oh,
So
God.
I think it's truly hard sometimes to make that judgment. But I think part of it is that you have to do your due diligence, ask the right questions, and do not ignore red flags.
So some red flags that you can look out for, if you're not already aware, is the first major one that's the easiest, I think, to identify is if you search any breeder and they have puppies available at that moment, that's a big red flag. So
your preservation breeders have a waiting list almost always.
Right.
Yeah.
So unless you have somehow gotten super lucky and come in with them having an open spot on a litter that's coming in a few weeks, which will never happen from someone that's breeding more ethically because they have a wait list.
Yeah.
There's
that's also part of breeding too frequently.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Because it's not healthy for a female dog to be constantly breeding. That's just not how that works.
I don't think it's healthy for us women as humans to be breeding all the time, but what do I know? I don't have kids.
Let's stick with corgis.
Okay. In all seriousness, that I think is super important, because you think to yourself, oh, it was meant to be. I called them up and they have a puppy. You know, you want so much to have this baby. This little
a good
fur
point.
baby.
Emotional
the normal
decisions.
emotional decision is, oh, I'm so lucky. I'm blessed. You know, whatever deity, I'm blessed, and this was meant to be. So please, if you're starting to say meant to be, stop in the middle of the sentence, take a step back and think. That's a human emotion.
Well, and I'm going to back up a little bit on that and say, I love that you've brought up if puppies are already available, that could be a red flag. And there are instances where sometimes, like you said, you do get lucky. Maybe it is meant to be. But I think to think about one, frequency of breeding is why you're going to have fewer available on a wait list, because they're going to breed that pup mindfully. But also, when it comes to rescue, sometimes when the puppy's already born, it needs a home. It needs a home. We want all the puppies to have homes. The difference is we don't want to be we don't want the money to go there. We don't want them, if they can make money off that dog, right?
Yeah.
So we're talking about preemptively as you're planning, when you decide, I want a puppy, here's what to look for, starting there. And then please continue.
I think also maybe people will think about like, oh, I'm rescuing this puppy from a puppy mill. But in reality, you're encouraging and incentivizing the puppy mill to breed more.
Because they've profited off of you.
Because they made money.
Right.
I think this year, for the first time, we actually transported puppies. And there was nothing wrong with them other than the fact that they were too old to be sold as puppies. And so I think, just talking out loud, we were maybe thinking it's because of like the COVID demand, right? That they made a whole bunch of money and they continue to produce at the same rate. And now that they're here, now what? Right. So it's honestly, I don't know where I'm going with this.
Well, no, you bring up a good point, and I'm glad you brought that up, and that's part of why we do this show.
Yeah.
When I had my first corgi, Lilo, he crossed the bridge in 2019. I got him as a puppy in 2004. I had my first corgi in my family that was born in 99. That was Kira. And back then, people didn't know what a corgi was. And they would see Lilo, who was bred from a show line. He was a gorgeous. I was young. I didn't know anything about buying puppies, but I bought from a show breeder. And I got lucky with him. He was well bred. He was beautiful. He was healthy. He had wonderfully temperamented. But I would bring him places and people say, that is a really interesting looking dog. What kind of dog is that? And I would say a corgi, and they'd say, a what? And I'd have to explain, like the Queen's dogs, people didn't know. But when social media came out, it's been a blessing and a curse. It's wonderful to be able to share each other's pets with one another and their adventures. And it's, of course, we love it. We travel, and we love it when people love seeing our travels and what we're doing. But the dark side to that is that if people see this, they see these adorable corgis, they see
they
some of
think
the
that
major influencers, they don't know what questions to ask, how to get one. They say, oh, that is a really cute dog, I want to go get one. And then they go and they purchase, and they don't have this information. And so you end up with this problem that sort of grows, where these people who maybe haven't done breeding before or have before say, hey, there's a big demand for this breed. We've seen it happen with collies, Lassie,
Malinois.
Right? Malinois. Yeah, these dogs that kind of, it's fanfare.
Beethoven, he's a slobber.
Saint Bernard.
Saint Bernard.
Yeah.
It's fanfare. So we get fanfare started with movies, with social media, with all this. But the Corgi breed has been one that has grown. And now we have what's called, and I'm sure you experience it, the paparazzi, where you can't go anywhere without a fan club going, oh my gosh, Corgis. That was not a thing when I had Lilo early in his life. That happened much later. And so what happens is the wrong people see a cash cow.
Yes.
and they say, oh, there's a high demand. I can charge money. I can make money off these animals.
Well,
and there's too often there's not enough regard for what are you doing?
Yeah. So going back to the belief that, and again, it's a human emotion. I am saving this puppy from the puppy mill. I will dish out whatever ridiculous amount they want, and that is wrong. And thank you for bringing up that this year you have rescued puppies. Now they may not be 8 weeks old, they may not be 10 weeks old, but they are puppies.
They weren't
puppies,
spoken for.
They were not spoken for, and they did not make these people, imagine the air quotes, they did not make these people any money, and so they were given up to you for rescue. My point is, no, don't give these horrible breeders a dime. Go to the rescues. There are puppies at the rescues. The price that you pay for the puppy at the rescue is the price that keeps the rescue in business. It is the price for the food and the vet and the care and the love. So skip the puppy mills. You're not helping anyone but the breeders, the bad breeders, the mill runners, the millers, as you called them. That's all you're helping.
Well,
go to the rescue.
Let's keep this in context. We always recommend rescue. 100%. Are you willing to rescue? When someone says, I want a corgi, my first question is, are you willing to rescue? And then what is your history with the breed? Are you familiar with their temperaments and the kind of exercise they need and the kind of engagement they need? Well, please rescue 100% if you're willing. However, if you want a puppy, there's no shame in wanting a puppy. If you want to bring one for a puppy, please come to us if you're not sure what questions to ask. We want to guide you the right way so that you are actually purchasing from a mindfully bred.
Right. And so, but this specific example that our guests talked about was now these puppies couldn't be sold. So they went to a rescue. So that's a way of doing it. You know, that instead of supporting a knowing puppy mill. Yeah. Instead of supporting a knowing puppy mill, thinking a
lot of people don't know. Yeah, and that's why we have this. And Melissa, kind of told us that. She says, "Come to the rescues. Even if you want a puppy." And Melissa says that. She's like, "We love our good breeders. We're not going to shame you if you want a puppy. Maybe you don't want one of our rescues. Maybe it's not right for you. That's part of the responsibility that these rescues groups come from, and people will sometimes complain. I've heard it. Yeah. These rescues have a lot of rules. I want to rescue, and they make it very difficult. There's a reason why. It's because we have vested interest in, there may be behavioral problems, there may be health challenges. Most of these cases are not cut and dry. Dogs friendly needs a home. It's often not like that. It's often there's either aggression issues, there's fear, there's health issues because they were poorly bred, poorly cared for, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. They have to vet properly. And so that's why it's like that. And if you're not prepared to deal with that as an individual, there's no shame in that. The rescue's responsibility is to guide you properly. But if you say, I am prepared for a puppy and the training, getting one early, great. Let the rescue also help guide you because they will tell you where not to go. Right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so tell us more about transport stories and happy stories and
happy stories. We have happy stories.
We like happy stories too.
We like happy stories. Okay. So the OG happy story is our transport fail story. So we met a corgi. He's 2 years old. His backstory is that he was chained outside, forced to breed by the mill. He basically was shooting blanks or something. He wasn't breeding. He was just not interested. So the miller basically decided that it wasn't worth keeping him around. So they gave him up for rescuing. And he was our first transport in 2016. And he is now our old man, Nagi. We basically transported him from our area, North Jersey, into the city. And by the time we reached Freeport, he opened up a lot. He was coming over for pets. He was just having a really good time. Like, he seemed like he just kind of fit in. So as soon as we dropped him off, I reached out to our rescue organization and just asked if he had a home lined up. If not, we would like to be considered. And then I think the following week we did another transport of another Corgi, Ryder. He was not a happy boy. They were feeding Ryder some really awful things, and he was projectile vomiting into the car. It was like yellow. It was like, what are you eating? So we basically dropped off Ryder. Then we brought Nagi home.
Aw.
That was a good story.
Yay.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
Yeah. So we've been doing this for a little while. So we kind of see the different dogs coming in. We've built up a network, and one of the things we do try and do as well is talk to people and help guide them along. But we've also built up a network between our friends and our own followers.
Yeah. Because we are part of the New Jersey frat pack, the Corgi groups. So
yeah, that's awesome.
A bunch of friends there.
And so when we saw her name now is Ruby come in, she was another breeder dog that wasn't producing anymore. So they gave her up. She was terrified.
I still have videos.
Brought her in, got her to foster, and then
wait, you missed the most important part. Where she was so scared. So we picked her up to get her into the car. She was so scared that she pooped.
Oh.
Yeah. So as Gary was picking her up, poop was coming out of her butt. And we both just looked at each other and we were like, wow, she truly, truly terrified.
Yeah.
And she was kept in like a 4x4 cage. So that she had nowhere. And a lot of these dogs really have like limited space. So they don't go very far. They're kind of just stuck in that area. So she got into the car. She was so scared. We hooked her to the car to make sure that, obviously she's safe. And she stayed all the way in the back. And 2 hours later, because of traffic, she came forward. And we like to play Disney music when we do transports. I don't know why, but music
upbeat. It's upbeat.
Yeah, it's like it brings the puppies out of their like whatever trapped mindset, and it gets them like a little bit like trusting. I don't know why.
Prefrontal cortex.
Yeah, the magic of Disney.
I'm a trainer.
Yeah,
I'm a trainer. There is a science to this.
Yeah.
When certain things happen and with dog behavior, certain things activate the prefrontal cortex. When you do something like play something that's upbeat with certain key tonalities and certain beats per minute, it activates other sides of brain waves. So it allows them to kind of shut off that instinctive prefrontal cortex. It's a whole thing. I don't want to speak too scientifically because I only know a little bit about it. I'm not a scientist, so let me qualify that. But when it comes to training, that's part of that.
She's a trainer and a musician, so she knows a little.
Brainwaves. It has to do with brainwaves. You're doing calming things. Yes.
Yeah.
And the magic of Disney.
And the magic of Disney. So science plus magic. And eventually she came close. She allowed me to pet her. And one of our friends who recently lost her Corgi was kind of potentially thinking about fostering, thinking about adoption. So Emmy, that was her old name. She was so sweet. And because she kind of overcame this fear, like just within 2 hours of transporting, right? So I basically recommended her to our friend, and Ruby is home. Yeah. And Ruby is so great right now. She's in the best home. She has like space to run. She goes on walkies.
It's a good dog life. It's a good dog life. Well, thank you for doing that. We would love to have you back on again in the future if you're open to it. But we don't want to keep you all night. So we're going to let you get back to your important work. But before we wrap up, I do want to say, what's a call to action? How can we help you? How can we follow you? Volunteers, please tell us.
Yeah, I mean, please follow us at the Stumpy Brigade on Instagram. I know Gary produces YouTube videos.
I also do a lot of YouTube videos. So if you're interested in that, we can make videos there. But really, what we hope that we can do is help to educate people. Like, we're not trying to make anything that we're doing about us. We're always trying to make it about the dogs. So
that's the why.
and the dogs and cats that we help, that's what we want the focus to be on. So sometimes we'll do fundraising drives. Sometimes we'll do other things like that. If you want to get involved, feel free to reach out to us. We'll try and help you get involved with volunteering, fostering. We've gotten people involved. So that's kind of what we're trying to do.
Yeah, I mean, like, we're not a rescue. We're just like a couple who loves animals, and we like to like volunteer our time. I think like the only call to action really is like if you're considering doing something for the animals, like volunteering your time, fostering, transport, like do it. If you have questions, like feel free to reach out to us. But you know, take a small step at a time. I would say, Kat, you took a really big step in taking mama and puppies.
Yeah.
Like, wow.
I'm dumb that way. So, you know,
masochist. She's masochist.
It doesn't bother me until it bothers me, and then it doesn't bother me. So
it's still a lot of work though. So you should give yourself a lot of credit for
so far so good. Yeah. So far so good. She's still feeding, but
we have a lot of love here. We have a lot of care.
We do.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. I will drop those links down into the description box. So if you are not following Stumpy Brigade already, you should be, and you can, and that way you can reach out to them for help. Thank you so much, both of you, for everything you're doing and for taking your time today to be with us.
Yes.
Thanks for having us. This was fun.
Thank you. Have a great rest of your weekend.
Thank you. You too.
You too.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.
Well, we hope you enjoyed this episode, and we hope that you follow the links so that you can be part of the change that we're here all about at Corgi Town USA. We're here for you every week, all things Corgi and pet parent lifestyle, Candy and Chuckles,
Catherine and Digby,
and of course, Booger, Mortimer, and Tito. We'll see you next week.
See you next week. Bye.